Okay, let's see where we are. So tonight we're going to be doing a live tutorial of Welcome Pumpkin of a SVG, creating an SVG or converting an image to an SVG, and then adding in that SVG into our 3D print. I'm going to try and keep it relatively basic, relatively simple. So I'm just going to be working on two colours, so it'll just be a base colour and then the SVG colour, and all depending on time permitting, we may try and add in a few little extras as well. But initially, just want to try and do a very basic tutorial on creating the SVG and understanding what the SVG is. So that's the kind of plan for this evening's live. Hopefully I should be able to get it done within the hour. But what I am going to try and do is take my time a little bit and just go through each process completely live, so I've got nothing already set up, and let's just see what we can create in each step. So that's the plan. So first things first, there's a couple of programs that I use to help me with my SVGs. So if you are following along, I'll just very quickly show you a couple of the things that I use. So the most important one is going to be this site, which is, let's just get this up, which is the SVG converter. So this is picsvg.com. So that's picsvg.com. Pix, and that's a free SVG converter, and this is what we're going to be using to convert our image into an SVG format. Don't get too concerned about what SVG is at this point. All we're looking to do is take something like a JPEG or a PNG, all these different file formats that you hear about, and turn them into an SVG. Ultimately, that's all we want to do, is try and get that SVG that we're going to import into our slicer. So, as I say, if you are following along, then we need to make sure that we have this PixVG. As I say, it's a completely free site, so it doesn't cost anything, and I have this just saved to my favourites. There are another couple of other little bits and bobs that I use when I'm creating these images, but for now we're just going to stick with this PixVG. Okay, so you are following along, fantastic. Okay, so first and foremost, what we're after is an image. So just to make it completely random, like I say, I'm hoping that this video will be done within the hour. And then what I'm going to do, welcome Crichton, then what I'm going to do is I will upload the whole video as a tutorial. So I'm going to try and keep on track with the tutorial side of things. So if I don't focus too much on the chat, then that'll be why I'm not focusing so much on the chat, as I will upload this as a full tutorial. Oh, well done, Crichton. You got your atom stack coming, brilliant, mate. So as I say, this may be somewhere between, I reckon, 30 minutes and an hour, all depending on how quickly we can get this done. And this is just creating the SVG and then adding it in. That's all right, Crichton, you're more than welcome. I can do a little mini tutorial on the atom stack if you want. That's not a problem. Okay, so let's get started with this SVG. So first of all, what we need to do is create this SVG. So just to make sure that it's completely random, if anyone in the chat has got a idea of an image that we can look for. Now, just to give you an idea, when we're looking for something to turn into an SVG, primarily we are looking for something in a black and white format. So just type in SVG into Google. Ignore these colour ones, but these are typically what SVGs are going to be looking like. So nice solid black and white husky. Okay, we can find a husky or something along them lines. So these are what we're kind of looking for, are these black and white images, clear defined lines. Anything like this works really well. Okay, I've just got ban on my live again. Oh, I get so frustrated with these bans. Let's just quickly submit that. So that's what we're going to be looking for is something with a solid kind of black and white image as opposed to colour, and you'll see why when we come to convert them. So there's a number of places that you can get black and white images from. We can have a look in Pinterest, and ultimately wherever you find your image from, that's entirely up to you. So we can have a look in Pinterest, for example, and I'm just going to search for black and white. Let's have a look for a husky. So I mean, we could go for something. This would be an ideal kind of image. Avoid the photographic type images. Them are not going to turn out. Those are not going to do well in changing to an SVG. So this kind of thing would be absolutely ideal. A black and white image. As I say, where you find your images from is completely up to you. Just be aware that some images have copyright. So you can't always sell these things. So just take care. Obviously, I'm not selling anything. I don't sell my prints. So I'm just going to be using this image. Welcome, Albie. How are you, my friend? So for tonight's demonstration, I'm just going to be using this little husky dog here. As I say, I'm not selling it. I'm just using it purely for demonstration purposes. And we're going to convert this into a SVG. So within Pinterest, so I have I'm not too bad, thank you, Albie. Another busy day, but it's the same for everyone, isn't it, my friend? Okay, so here we have our image of a little husky, and all I'm going to do is go to more actions. This is in Pinterest. I'm just going to download that image. Okay, and that's now downloaded, and this is download 53, and that's coming as a JPEG. Okay, so hopefully, if you are, like I say, if you are following along, you've got yourself an image that you want to use. Either give me a good or a thumbs up or something, just to let me know if you are following along that you've got yourself an image, so we can move on. Okay, we're back. Device not connected or available. Are we back? I think I'm back. If you could just let me know whether you can hear me okay. It's saying that you should be able to hear me on my bar, so. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So we've found our image, downloaded our image. At the moment, we've got it as a JPEG. Again, don't get too concerned about the format that it's currently in, as long as we can use it. So something like a JPEG or a PNG. JPEG are probably the most common. Okay, so now we're going to open up our Google and we are going to make our way to SVG converter. As I say, I've got mine on in my favourite bar, so it's there. I use it quite a lot. So we're just going to make our way to the SVG converter, and we're just going to go to upload a picture, and we can click upload. Clicking on upload will bring us to my downloads, and we can see here that we have download 53, and I know that is my little husky, so I can double click on that, and that will bring up something along the lines of what you can see on the screen now. Now when it first comes in, it'll look terrible. So image on the left is your original image, that's what we're basing our SVG on, and we'll have this image on the right hand side, and quite often it will come in looking like this, which is just a kind of outline drawing, doesn't fill anything in. And what I tend to do is 99% of the time you'll see this box that says edge or filter. So you've got detail strung. I never touch that detail strung, always leave that as whatever it is, so strung. On the filters, when you click on the drop down for the filters, I think if it's anything like mine, it starts off on edge 1, edge 2, and then you have internal, smooth, clean, sharp, detail, artistic. Again, 99.9% of the time I use internal 1. So internal 1, 99% of the time is going to give me what I want. So we click on internal 1, and we can now see on our image that we have our little husky, and that looks really nice. That seems to have copied really well. Hopefully you've got something very similar on your screen with your SVG. And again, the quality of your SVG will largely depend on the quality of the image that you put in there. If you try and put something in like a photograph or something with different colours, it won't recognise the different colours necessarily. It'll start putting greys and stuff in, and that can mess things up. So ideally it needs to be this black and white image. That's where you'll get your best kind of separation between these. That's definitely what works best. Okay, so we've got internal 1. We've got internal 1. That's giving me what I want. At this point, just for future reference, if you're doing something like laser engraving, then we can actually invert colours on this one. So we could invert the colour, and that would be ideal for laser engraving, because what it means, especially on slate. So if you're doing something on slate, which I know Pumpkin you do and Crichton does, and a few others again into the laser engraving, then obviously what this will do is this inverts the colour. So if we was engraving on black, on a black slate, is that'll invert the colours for you. So when you import this into your laser engraving, then the light part then becomes the dark part. Let's not get into laser engraving. Let's not do that. Right, let's just stick on point. Right, so I got this. We're just going to go to download SVG. That's as simple. What will happen now is it'll come up in the top right hand corner with this random code. Mine's V5ZBDL1. All I need to do is just remember that code. Okay, so we've got this code, and that's going to give me the SVG, and that is it. That's me done in the SVG. So we can close all that. Hopefully you've got an SVG that you've downloaded, and you know where you've downloaded it to. Welcome 3DNIS. Now at this point we can open up your slicer. Now this will work in Elegoo Slicer, it works in Orca Slicer, it should work in the majority of slicers. The main two that I use are Elegoo and Orca. For tonight's example, I'm just going to stick with my Elegoo slicer as I would do normally. If you are using a different slicer, Orca or bamboo slicer, it may look slightly different, but I'm fairly confident it's almost identical. There's not a great deal of difference. So bamboo for you, that's okay. It should be. And feel free just to mention if it does look, if any part does look different, please feel free to ask, or there may be some wording slightly different. I think in one of the slicers, in Elegoo slicer, it talks about adding primitives, and I think in the bamboo slicer it's just add part. So there's little bits which are slightly different. Welcome, Gramster. How are you, my friend? I'm very well, thank you. Oh, it looks like my laptop is going on go slow tonight. Alright, let me just close that down so I can get that working properly. Just make sure I haven't got anything too much going on in the background. Task manager. My word, it is going on slow today. Let me just make sure I haven't got any extra windows open. I'm sure you're all waiting now, waiting for my slicer to kick in. Absolutely, I'll blame the heat. Welcome, well dogs. Alright, let's try this again. As I say, it doesn't normally take this long. It's normally fairly quick to load in, so I don't know why it's quite. Okay, so we're going to create a new project. And what I'd recommend, like I say, I'm only going to be doing it in two colours, just for the sake of the process of how we're doing it. Is I'm just going to make sure I've got two different colours, and then what I'll do is when I import the SVG, I'll just put the SVG as a separate colour, and it just makes it easy to work with by having the two things separate. So if you try and have two different colours, then you can do that just by using the add filament, and adding a filament will add this extra colours. You could take away the filament, so your filament might just be showing one. If you want to add an extra colour, you can add some extra colours just at the top here. But ideally we just want to have two colours. And if you are there or thereabouts with that, then either give me a thumbs up or a yes and I'll carry on. Fantastic. Okay. So everything else now that we're going to do is going to be done in the slicer. No need to go out anywhere else to any other CAD software. There are things that you can do in CAD which we can do to help this along, but for today's tutorial, it's just in the slicer. Okay, so all we're going to do on this is we're going to right click anywhere on your plate, and it should bring up a menu, and on Elegoo Slicer it says add primitive. In Bamboo Slicer it may say add part. In Orca Slicer, I'm not quite sure which one it says in Orca Slicer. It'll either say add part or add primitive. And what we're going to look to do first is create our clock face for this example. So we're going to go to, is it primitive in Bamboo? Fantastic. So we're going to go to add primitive, and we're just going to add a cylinder. So you'll see cylinder is the second one down on mine, and we click on cylinder. And that should give you a generic cylinder in the middle of your plate. And you've got your little highlight cube around it, so you can see that you've got your little highlight to say that it's been selected. Next thing we're going to do is up the top here, you can see menus along the top, and all we're looking for is this scale one. This one that says scale. It's got a little square and then 4 arrows coming out of it, and we click on scale. And this, believe it or not, is a part where a lot of people get caught out. Honestly, they do, because I've done this a few times with people over WhatsApp video. I've done a few one-on-one tutorials with people. So what we're looking to do now is change the size of this cylinder. Now what we want to do is make sure that we don't touch this top line. This top line at the top is just for scale. So don't touch anything which is on the percentage line. All we want to do is work on the bottom 3 boxes. First thing we're going to do is turn off uniform scale. Okay, turn off uniform scale. Now in X we want our clock face, in this example, is going to be 200 diameter wide, and we want it to be 200 in the Y, the depth, and we can hit tab on that, and we're going to do that on the Z, which is the thickness of your disc, is going to be 2 mil. Now I find 2 mil works really well for me for the clock mechanisms that I have. So I don't know whether it'll show up, I have these little clock mechanisms, and 2 mil works just great for the space that I need on here. So I'm going to stick with a 2 mil. Okay, so once we've put our 200 in the X, 200 in the Y, 2 mil in the Z, making sure that the uniform scale is off, and also make sure that you hit enter in between each one of these, and then we can click off, and you should have your clock face. And again, if I start going too fast or I skip something because I think it's simple, please feel free to interrupt me in the chat, or if you need me to go back over anything, feel free to bring it up. Okay, so now we have our disc. What I like to do, a couple of things that I like to do, is I always work on plate 1. So I've got no other plates I've got no other plates, just the one plate. So I'm working on plate 1. And as I go along, I like to try and center my pieces, making sure that they're on the center. So if I just click on my disc and then right click, if it wasn't in the center, then I could recenter it using the center button. So if, for example, I'd move this over here for whatever reason, I can just left click on the disc, press the right mouse button, I can center, and that's going to center that back in the center of this disc. And again, that will become important when we come to put our SVG on later on, or our clock face. Okay. Also, and I'll just add this because I've done quite a few of these, I also know that when I'm working on plate 1, the center point of plate 1 is 128 mil. 128 mil. So when I go to my placement, move, you'll see that I've got 128, 128. So the 128 is the center point. I also remember that from doing this. Okay, brilliant. Now what we're going to do is obviously click on our disc, and then we're going to right click, and now we're going to go to add a part. So now we're not adding primitive, we're going to add a part, and it'll bring up a new list, and we could add a cube, a cylinder, or a sphere. Right down the bottom we've got an SVG, so we're going to click on SVG, And when you click on SVG, it's going to take you to your documents. Now, I downloaded this one to my downloads earlier, which was this V5ZBDR1. That's the one that I got converted through the converter. And I'm just going to double click that one. And now you should have your SVG appear in your slicer. Don't worry about the size of it for the moment. We'll sort that out in a minute. Okay, hopefully, I'll tell you what, if I see a load of hearts go flying up, then I know that I can carry on. Is that a blatant way to get likes here? Okay, so first thing that I like to do is change the colour of this SVG. So we've imported it. Don't worry about whatever anything is saying on this right hand side. Don't worry about any errors. Don't worry about this box at the moment. What we need to do is come over to this left hand side, and underneath where your filaments are, you'll see a menu called Process, and you'll see Global, and you'll see Objects. So what I want to do is left click in the Objects, and this is where it tells us what is currently on the plate. So ignore the top one for now. So the first one, which is your cylinder, and it tells you that your cylinder is in black, and the one underneath should be the name of your SVG. So in my case, it's the V5ZB. And what I like to do is right click on that colour, change the filament, and I'm just going to change that to, let's change that to white, or the cream on my case. And that just makes it easier for me to see where my SVGs at all times. Obviously, you can change the colours as you see fit. This is purely just for making sure that everything kind of lines up. So that's all I've done in there. Change the colour. Now we can concentrate over on this right hand side on this box. So the first thing that I'm going to do, so for my clock, I don't, as standard, it comes in at 10mm thick. Well, I don't need this to be 10mm thick. I generally do 1mm, so I get 5 layers. 5 layers at 0.20 is usually more than enough to cover the base colour of my print. So we're going to put that at 1mm. Don't worry about the size in here at the moment. We'll change the size after. I'm not going to use surface, so don't tick the surface for now. The only other thing that we need to make sure is that we are on join and not cut. If you wanted to cut into your circle, into your clock face, you could use a cut. But again, for this example, we're going to be putting this image on top of our 2mm disc. So it's going to be 1mm thick. Don't worry about the size, and it's on join, and that's all it needs to be. Now I can click off anywhere. Just click off anywhere on the plate, and we are now left with our circle and our SVG on top. Now the next part, when we're playing around with the SVG, the most crucial part is we need to be making sure that we are in Objects. So don't go back to Global, make sure that we are always in Objects. And when we come to select something, to move something, we need to be selecting it from here. Okay, don't select it from off the plate, we're going to select it from out of this Objects part. So first thing we're going to do is select my SVG. You will see that these little corner pieces appear to show that just the SVG is selected, and we're going to go to scale. So we click on scale. Now rather than trying to type in and be clever, trying to work out exactly the size for this, we're just going to do it by eye. And all we're going to do is we're just going to grab a corner. Either of these 4 corners will keep everything within scale. So as long as you choose one of these from the corner, any of those 4 corners, that's going to keep your image in scale. And we're just going to scale that down. Now before we click enter, or before we right click anything like that, what we can also do is go to this move. When we click on the move, we can also move, because we are still just working on the SVG. Have I gone all roboty? Thank you, Grandster. Bear with me. Let's try that. Any better, or am I still gone like a robot? If you just let me know whether I'm any better, whether it's okay to carry on, and if I did go all roboty, then yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Right, so if you missed anything there, if I went all robotic, please feel free to say. So we've now got my little husky on my plate. Is that, am I back on again now? It looks like I'm back on. Hopefully I'm not robotic. I can only apologise about that. Why I keep losing that? Okay, let's see, is that any better? I've swapped back to my old headset, which I'll be honest, I've never had a problem with my old headset, but hopefully, is that better? And you can hear me okay on that one, I'm not robotic at all. Fantastic. Okay, well just let me know if it does go again. I'm kind of thinking there might be something wrong with that wire, but we'll see. Either that or there's something wrong with this port that I'm connected to, but just let me know if that sounds okay and if I start going robotic. Right, okay, so what we've done then is created our disk, created our SVG, and we now have our SVG 1mm thick sat on top of our clock face. And that would be ready to print, so that's got a print time of 1 hour 32 minutes. And in essence, that is how you add your SVG. Now what we can also do at this point, if we was doing a clock design, I just need to go back into prepare. Now obviously you can move this image around if you wanted to move that image around a little bit. Just remember that if we're going to be moving anything, don't grab the image from here, don't grab it on the plate, always select it from out of your objects list. So make sure you're in objects, click your SVG from within your objects and then move it from in there. So again, like I say, we can rescale that if we want to, but when we're scaling it this way, all I'm scaling it in is the overall size. I'm not adjusting any height. And as I say, that then will give you your image on your clock face. Now the only other thing that we may have to do for our clock face is we'll need to add a negative part. So on this occasion, I know that my clock mechanisms, I need, so for this little clock mechanism, I need a 9mm hole right in the centre of my disc. So all we do with that, so just make sure that you're in the prepare. So if you have sliced it, just to make sure that everything's slicing, just bring yourself back to the prepare menu, bring ourselves back to prepare, and we can click on your clock face, and then we're going to right click on the clock face, and this time we're going to be looking for add negative part. So it needs to be a negative. So add the negative, and we're going to choose the cylinder. And we're going to be adding a negative cylinder. What you'll see is this kind of see-through cylinder appear on your plate. And over here in your objects list, you'll now see a generic cylinder with a negative sign next to it. So this one is your negative cylinder, and this is going to cut away whatever it touches on here. So all we're going to do is, with this negative cylinder highlighted, we're going to scale it, make sure that your uniform scale is off, and we're just going to change the X, so it's going to be 9mm wide, 9mm high, and I always leave the Z way oversized, because that just helps for positioning it. So for this example, let's just say 25mm. We're not cutting 25mm out, we just want to make sure, and you'll see why I'll leave that as a bigger size than needed. Make sure that we hit enter and then click off your plate. Okay, so this is going to be, this now is a 9mm hole, so wherever I place this, it's going to create a 9mm hole. And as I said earlier, one of the reasons why I like to try and keep everything centered on the plate where I can is I can now click on this negative, and I can click on the plate on this negative. That's okay. It's just when we're talking about adding to these parts, because at the moment we've added the SVG to this disc, so when you try and move one, you end up moving both, as you'll see. But if you do that, there's ways to put it back. But with this negative part, we can select that as its own separate bit, or if you want to, select it from your objects. And all we're going to do, right click on that, and we can center, and you'll see that because we've got everything else centered, that negative now goes in the center. Now we can move it, and this is why I leave it oversized, and all I want to do is just make sure that I can see that sticking through the top and the bottom. Doesn't matter how much it sticks through the top, doesn't matter how much it sticks through the bottom, as long as it sticks through. Okay. Am I still getting volume at the minute? Am I still being heard? And what we can do now, yeah, okay, cool. So now what we can do, we're going to give that another quick slice. All we're looking to do is make sure that we can see that our negative is now in the centre of the clock face. I don't have a multicolour machine, so the way that I would do this is I'll just do a manual change. So I would turn I would turn off this multicolour material part, because it doesn't affect me. So there we have an image that we found on this example Pinterest. As I say, it could be Google Images, could be a JPEG, could be a PNG. Like I say, don't get too bogged down with the type that you're looking at. The more important thing is that we just need to be able to convert it into that SVG using that SVG converter. Now, in essence, that would be good to print. Obviously, you can play around with your colours as you see fit, but in essence, that is going to give you your image. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to very quickly save that, because we're now going to also add in the numbers around the outside. Obviously, it's a clock. We want to put a clock face in. Absolutely, we can, yeah. And what I'll do is
It'll just be a good chance again just to show how we create the SVG, because all I'm going to do is I'm going to find an image of my clock numbers, find one that's suitable to turn into an SVG, turn it into an SVG, and then import it in exactly the same way as we have done with this image. So let me just save this, and I'm going to save this as, let's save this as Husky Clock. I'm just going to save that, just in case I hit anything wrong. Okay, so this now takes us back right to the very start of the video where we first started looking for our image of the Husky as pumpkin asphalt, the Husky. So I'm going to go into Google. So this will just be a recap of how we get the SVG. So I can either look in Google, so I could look for clock faces. Like I say, the first one that I did. So let's take a look at, let's try a lot of this is going to be down to personal preference, so excuse me, choose whatever kind of numbers you want, whether you want big numbers, little numbers. So what we're going to look at, so let's just go for this one. So you can see this image here. So this is just in clock faces, looking in Google Images. In fact, I can go to images this way. What I want to find is a clock face with no hands. I don't want no hands on there because we can create our own hands. And again, your hands will depend upon your clock mechanism. So I'm not going to be doing hands today. We're just going to be doing the numbers. So let's just choose one of these. I just want to choose something with relatively small numbers, possibly. But again, it might just be. Let's go with this one. Okay. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on this image. I'm going to save image. That's going to save as a JPEG. So I'm just going to put that and save that image as Husky clock numbers. So this is just going to save in my downloads Husky clock numbers. I'm going to save that, and that's saving as a JPEG image. Now, as I say, I mean that is that'll be the one that I use for the demo. What you could also do is, again, you could go to Pinterest. Pinterest I find really useful. You could go to Pinterest or any other image site. Where you get your images from is completely your business. So if I go to, you'll put it on here, I've already got some clock faces that I've looked at. So you could select any of these. And again, all down to personal preference. If you wanted Roman numerals, we could go Roman numerals. If you want to do it this way, then we can download those Roman numerals. So we just go to more actions, download image, and in fact let's do both of these, and that's been saved as well. Okay, so now we close down that, and let's open back up my Google. And as I say, the main thing that we need to make sure that we've got is this free SVG converter. So for those who maybe weren't here from the start, the one that I use is completely free. It's a free converter, and it's called PicsVG, PICSVG.com. And then we can upload a picture, and all you're going to do is I can take the Husky clock numbers, or I can take the Roman clock face. Somebody tell me which ones do you want? Do you want the numbers or the clock or the Roman numerals? I'd say I would have a vote, but there's only 3 people in the chat, so do you want Roman numerals or numbers? I mean, I can do both, but let's try the Roman numerals first. So I'm going to upload that. So again, on the left hand side, that is the original that we bought it in, and this is what it looks like on the this is what it's going to look like when we come to download the SVG. As I said earlier, 99.9% of the time I will leave the details strong and I will change these filters to internal 1. That is just my go-to. And then we download the SVG, and that SVG is going to be called JEVECL1, I'll remember that. While we're here, just to show you, we can also upload another picture, and let's just put those Husky clock numbers in as well. So here's our numbers from our original. That's the original clock numbers that I bought in, and again you can see when I don't change it to internal, then the numbers can be very hit and miss. You'll see that these are proper black, these look bad. So again, 99% of the time, internal 1, that normally gets me to where I want to go. So we'll download the Husky numbers as well, as I've called them, and that one begins with a Q. Okay, so now we can close that. That's done with. Go back to our slicer. And again, I'm now adding another SVG. So what I'm going to be doing is when I bring the SVG in, I will change its colour. And again, I'm just changing the colour just so I can see, and it makes it easier for me to work out where things are going. So all I'm going to do is first and foremost make sure that I'm in prepare. Come up to this top tab. If you've sliced it before, make sure you're in this prepare tab. And then we can select our disk. So just left click on the disk, press right click, and we can go to add part, come across, and we're going to go to SVG. And now I can choose my SVG. Now I've created, the top one is the numbers, the second one down is the Roman numerals. So let's add the Roman numerals in. And as before, the Roman numerals come in. First thing I'm going to do is ignore this side, ignore everything. First thing I want to do is come to Objects, go into the Objects tab. You will see that on the plate at the moment I have a cylinder, which is my black cylinder, and clock face. I have an SVG called V5, which is my Husky. I then have an SVG called JA, which is my Roman numerals, and that is the one that I'm going to change to my filament just to a different colour so I can see what I'm doing with it. And the bottom one is my negative generic cylinder, which is my centre hole. Okay. Now before I click off anything else, I'm going to come back over to this right hand side. Defaults in at 10mm, so I'm just going to change that to, I'll change that to 1mm for the sake of argument again. I'm not going to use the surface, it's on join, and I can click anywhere off that. Now obviously this one now isn't in the centre. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball it for now, just for now. Right, let me just make sure before I go any further that I've not rushed ahead on anything there. Right, does that make sense to everyone what I've just done there? I've just imported another SVG in, changed the colour just to make it easy, change the thickness of the numbers now, that's all I'm doing, changing the thickness of the numbers to a mil, and now I'm just looking to position it. Fantastic. So I'm going to go over to back over to my objects. I'm going to go to this generic cylinder, to my SVG, which is this one. And what you might find is even though I'm in this prepare tab, when I click on that and I try to put it in the centre, it doesn't always bring in the option to be able to centre it, as it's not now. However, if I click on the object, so the object is the numbers, I can come up to move. Now this is why I use plate 1, and I'm sure most printers, unless you've got a really big printer, if you've got anything with a 256 bed, which I think you have, Pumpkin, I don't know about you 3D in this, but if you've got a plate which is a 256 bed, our centre is 128, 128, and that's the size that I keep in mind. So I need to put these numbers in the centre. So at the moment, when I go to move, let me just go back. Okay, well, we're working on the 256 one for now, 3D this, okay. But obviously on a 325, it's just the centre point of a 325, so you're talking 162 and a half, something like that, thereabouts. Okay, so just to recap, I'm going to select my numbers from in the Objects tab from over here. I'm going to go to Move. Now what we want to do first of all, these numbers will come up under the Object coordinates. We need to change the Object coordinates to World coordinates. Okay, that's the first thing to do. World coordinates. You need to change from Object to World coordinates. And then in X, we're going to type 128, because I know that's the centre. In the Y, I'm going to type 128, because I know that's the centre. Don't worry about the Z. Leave the Z wherever it is. And we can hit Enter. And now you should see on there, if I just try and zoom in, that our numbers are now set. Because we've added the numbers to this part, it will automatically snap to that surface, and you can see that your numbers are now part of that. Let's just do a quick slice to make sure that is working. Okay, so now that is a 1 hour and 42 minute print, and that is going to print a 2mm black disc. It's going to print 1mm for the image of the husky, and it's got 1mm for the Roman numerals. Now what you might want to do at this point is you might just want to shrink this little husky down a little bit, just so it's not overlapping these numbers. So in order to do that, just remember, we've just sliced it, so the first thing we need to do is come back out and go into Prepare. So we're back in our Prepare tab. We want to resize the husky, so don't click the husky on here, come across to your objects, select your husky. You know it's your husky because it is in cream. We're going to select our husky. We're going to come up to scale, and as long as we grab it by one of these corners, we can just reduce that little husky down just a little bit to get in where you're wanting, like that. Now, obviously, if I was doing that on my printer, I don't have AMS, I don't have a multicolour printer on mine. Mine is just a single colour printer. I would have to then do a filament, a pause after the initial 2mm disc. I would then have to change to the cream. I'd probably end up doing this in Orca Slicer, because Orca Slicer is much easier than Elegoo Slicer to do manual colour changes. It does recognise when you've got the different colour changes in there. But in essence, there is your clock. Roman numerals are an SVG, your husky is an SVG, and this is going to be the only time that I'm going to add another plate, and this is purely just to show you quickly. So I'm going to choose those numbers, I'm going to grab them numbers, move them over here, I'm going to come back to my husky. Actually, let's get rid of those numbers altogether. I'm going to delete those numbers, delete the SVG. Still in Prepare, I'm going to click on there, I'm going to go to Add Part, add an SVG, and now I'm going to choose the numbers. So remember, I downloaded 2 sets of numbers. I'm going to change that, sorry. So I've opened up the numbers one rather than the Roman numerals. So just to show you how easy it is to do. And once you get into a routine of how you work, and this is just always the way that I work, so I've changed the colour of the numbers, I'm going to change the height of my numbers to just 1 mil. I'm not going to touch anything else. Okay, that's saying that it's detected inactivity on my live, so it's got my live will end in. I don't know why it's saying my live was going to end it because it couldn't detect activity. Okay, that was strange. So just gone through the normal routine, brought in my numbers as an SVG, change the colour so I can see them, change my depth to 1 mil, and then I can come back to my numbers. I'm going to move these numbers, change my object coordinates to world coordinates. I know what my numbers are, which are 128 for my X and my Y, leave my Z, press enter on that. While I'm still in here, I can then resize, just grab these corners, and I can bring, oh no, that's done the whole thing. Let me go back, and again, that's because I pressed the wrong one. Choose my numbers from the objects, do apologise, and we'll resize that, and we can resize our numbers from there. Let's try that. So look how that looks on the top. And so we can also very quickly change that SVG to a different SVG. And what you can do, and something that I do is quite often is I'll find some numbers, so like that I've got the 12 and or the Roman numerals, and you'll just save them into the folder as clock face numbers SVGs, and then you just bring them in as you see fit. Exactly the same with this little dog, wolf, husky, whatever you call it. It's just as easy. I could go into there, add an SVG, add a part. I've got plenty of SVGs that I have done. I always forget to number them now, so but this SVG, you'll probably recognise that from, so this SVG was that's an SVG that's been created in exactly the same way as my husky. And there we go. That is how easy it can be. Now, there is obviously more that you can do. I mean, first and foremost, I'm not going to do the hands because quite often you'll buy these little clock mechanisms and they'll have hands on them, or you can buy a pack of 12 clock faces and they come with an assortment of hands. Yes, you can print your own hands off, but it's a bit more difficult to do just in Slicer. But if you're going to buy a clock mechanism, the chances are you're going to have a set of hands with them anyway. They're only lightweight, aluminium, really lightweight. So sometimes it's not worth printing, 3D printing the hands. Although I've got my clock in front of me, my dad's BL one that I designed the hands in Fusion. That's something you can do, but again, obviously, you just need to make sure that you make the holes the right size for your clock mechanisms. So most of the time, I think you're just going to use the hands that come with the actual mechanism. And I think unless anybody has any questions on anything I've gone over there, whether I've gone too, if I've gone too fast over any particular point, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I think I've covered everything as a basic thing. As I say, with some of these images, so fantastic, thank you 3D-ness. Now, with these images, like I say, they work best with black and white images, some of these fairly simple images. Now, there are ways that you can take slightly more complex images and turn them into a black and white image and then convert them into So like I say, this part that I'm going to show you now isn't necessarily part of this tutorial. It's something that it may be a little bit more, I wouldn't say advanced, because that isn't the right word, but let me show you what you can do. So you can use AI, and I've got no problem with using AI. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, if any of you do make them, I would love to see them. So either post them up on your pages, or just drop me a photo in the DM. That'd be lovely to see what you come up with. And like I say, for me, this is all about just giving you a start, and then allowing you then to express yourself with just finding ways to experiment and play with things. So just to give you an idea, so this is an image that I was asked to turn into an SVG. Okay, so obviously you can see, fantastic. So you can see that this is one a guy from America got in contact with me, and he wanted to convert. Let me show you. All right, so he had this image, and he wanted to turn this image. This is an image that he sent me, and he wanted to turn this image into a clock. Very much like what we're doing now. In fact, that wasn't the original image. The original image that he sent me was a lot more complex than that. So his original image that he sent me was this one. So you can see that it's almost kind of like a photograph, and there's a lot of detail in there that an SVG just wouldn't pick up. As I say, this isn't necessarily part of the tutorial, but it's a way of doing things. So I was able to take this image and I ran this through Gemini. So this is Gemini that I'm using, and I've got to simplify this image so that I can convert to an SVG. So once it simplified it a little bit, you can see that it started simplifying it, and then I asked to make it black and white line drawing, so that it turned it into this black and white line drawing. And then I asked it to kind of get rid of any shading, any greys. I don't know greys, I only want black or white. And then it brought up this image. Now obviously you can see that this is a lot more complex compared to the image that we just looked at. And again, I've put in another prompt, make it more simple and remove shading. And then that was the fox. So you can see all this shading's been taken out, all this bit of clutter has been taken out. And then what we can do, and I'll just show this just before I finish, is we can then take this image. So this image was created, let me just, if I download this image, there it is up there, Gemini generated, and I can close that. Then I'm going to go to my SVG converter, SVG, upload a picture. Now the thing to remember that whenever we're uploading a picture into this free SVG converter, it can only be up to a maximum of 4 megabits in size. So just be careful of your sizes, and it needs to be either as a JPEG, a GIF, PNG. So those are the 3 types that you need: JPEG, GIF, or a PNG. So I'm going to upload a picture, and this Gemini created one. So you can see here's the image that I created using Gemini, so slightly more complex. And again, I go to this filters and I choose internal one. I'm going to download the SVG, and this one is called ZL. And as I say, this is, I wouldn't say more complex, it's just different, I suppose. Add an SVG. And let's just choose that ZL one. Set that to 1 mil thick. And I think hopefully you can see there now. Let's just change the colour of that one. Change to white, just so we can see it a little bit better. So you can see with a little bit of little bit of practice and a little bit of playing around using things like Gemini, then you can also create slightly more complex images, rather, you know, more than just a very basic SVG. Then you can use it to create some quite interesting designs. But like I say, that's more of an add-on to the main part of this tutorial. But there we go. Anyway, hopefully somebody has found that useful in adding the SVG. And SVGs also work great for creating images for, I believe you can use them in laser engraving. They work great for laser engraving if you've got your laser engraver. Yeah, I thought you could. It's been a while. In fact, let me just go back off this. I'm looking for my Roman numerals back on there. I think I prefer the Roman numerals. Let's put my Roman numerals back on. There we go. And I guess one last piece of advice, and I have done this, I did this just the other day. Don't forget to put your 9mm hole in the middle, or whatever size hole that you need in there. I did mine the other day and I completely forgot about putting the hole in. I was rushing to do one thing or another. I forgot to put my hole in. I had to drill it out with my drill bit. You know, it is what it is. But there you go. As I say, hopefully somebody's got something from that. Hopefully that was explained sufficiently for you to understand what I was trying to get with, what to look for in an image when we're looking to try and find something to convert to an SVG. As I say, just very quickly recapping, primarily you're looking for black and white images. That's absolutely no problem. Thank you for sticking around. Primarily you're looking for black and white images, nice solid looking images work best, although as I just showed you, you can use other images. It just takes a bit more to get them how you want. So obviously find your image using the free converter, so the PixVG will convert that image into an SVG. Important part, change that filter to internal 1. Internal 1 is the one that I would use 99.999% of the time. Download your SVG, and then, and I have also done this, is when you come to work in your slicer, put the clock face down first. Make that your starting base. Put down your 200mm or your 300mm, whatever size face you want. Maybe you're doing a coaster. In that case, put down your coaster first, and then add your SVGs to that part. Don't do it as a separate part, because that can make it complicated. So as long as you start with your base, so a 200mm clock face, add an SVG into it, add the second SVG if you want the clock numbers on, and then add your negative part, add everything onto that disc, and then you should have no problem with them going onto the face and sitting on there as well. Anyway, I think that is me done. That's me. I'm looking to sound of my own voice at the moment. I think that's me done talking for the night. So, like I say, hopefully you got something from that. I am going to end the tutorial now. What I will do is I will upload it to That's Quite Arcanist. Thank you very much for the thanks. What I will do is I'll upload it to TikTok anyway. Might take a little bit of time. It's an hour tutorial, but hopefully if somebody can get something from that, then fantastic. So thank you all for dropping in. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and catch you all soon. Thank you guys.